Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to another Temtem video. Now, before we begin, the purpose of this video is to talk about the creation of the digital type as outlined in Temtem Kickstarter Update 42. The information I'm about to go over has been public for quite some time, and if you were a backer of Temtem, there's a good chance you've already read this. If you haven't, however, I think that this is an extremely interesting piece of Temtem lore, and if you don't feel like reading this large post and would rather have it audibly fed to you, this is a video for you. I will be going over my thoughts and analysis at the end of the lore portion, but I wanted to get this disclaimer out there before I started reading this post verbatim. But anyways, with that out of the way, let's dive right in. The creation of digital Temtem. "It sure looks like rain," said Professor Victor of Brickle as he looked out the window. The gloomy Arborean skies were steadily turning in darker shade. "Well, I suppose we have time for a story then. Let me put the kettle on." The old armchair creaked when he dropped on it again. He took off his glasses. "So digital Temtem it is. I'm not surprised you'd ask about them. They're the newest, shiniest variety after all. And all that tech we have running on the same principles, like Comcasters or TVs as you youngsters like to call them. But I suppose you want to hear about the digitals themselves, right? I was there, you know. When they were first developed, I was a young research assistant fresh out of Properton College. I jumped on the airship as soon as I got the message and rushed to Chupanku just in time to join the team. It costed a fortune too. Mind you, this was before Tem cards, so if you wanted to bring your Temtem to Chupanku, you had to book berth space for it too. Anyway, so I made it to the lab and met my first boss, Dr. Sasaya. Let me tell you, she was by far the best scientist and most intelligent woman in... The whistling of the kettle interrupted him. He served 2 mugs of fragrant tea and gave the stranger one of them. He cupped his in a hand, inhaling wistfully. Very apropos. Chupanky black tea with a touch of Denzi and jasmine. Reminds me of home, but also of my times in... But I digress. So, Dr. Sasaya was already a legend when I started working at her lab in Nanto. She had been investigating the information storage properties of the Amanesian volcanic crystal, and that's how we came up with Tem cards. It was pretty unexpected, trust me. Sasaya was never too much into Temtem anyway. I was a Temtem fan, so I suggested we tried storing Temtem in them, and voila! We came up with the Tem cards. It's difficult to exaggerate how important that breakthrough was. Before Tem cards, Temtem had to be physically carried from one place to another. That was a nightmare, believe me. Many Earth Temtem were too heavy for airships, fire ones were too dangerous to handle, water ones couldn't survive very long on dry land. It was all a headache. Tem cards provided a safe and easy way of carrying out dozens of Temtem. That's what made Temtem taming affordable as it is today. Before Tem cards, you had to be pretty rich or influential to own more than a couple of Tems. No other invention was as liberating as Tem cards after the development of airships. He sipped some tea and nodded. But you were asking about digital Temtem. Yes, bear with me. So of course this generated incredible enthusiasm in the scientific community. It was a collective effort, you see. These principles had been described by Arborean theorists, but Tem cards had been developed in a Chupanky lab using Amanesian crystals and drawing on Kisiwan taming expertise during the trials. Everyone agreed that the major tech breakthrough required extensive collaboration. Nanto Labs used that prestige to bring in the best experts, people from all around the archipelago. That was the team in which developed digital Temtem. The professor sat back, his eyes distant as he reminisced. And what a dream it was. Professor Konstantinos from Properton did the theoretical groundwork. He was so young back then. Tihani of Nanga oversaw the Temtem breeding trials, a Jojo undergrad but already the best breeder in the Mirasals. Yarini of Quetzal, Nala of Vumbi, the very creme de la creme was there. But Dr. Sasaya wasn't interested in the Temtem side of research. She was always more of a pure technologist. She wanted to concentrate on the applications of the tech itself, so in her stead, she put Dr. Hamajo, her most promising pupil. That turned out to be a mistake. He gulped down some tea and left the mug over a precariously balanced pile of books. Surely, generally speaking, it was a success. Digital Temtem were born, and that was no mean feat. It was well beyond our initial scope, too. Funny how nobody remembers this, but our initial brief was to create crystal electric hybrids. Digital Temtem were a happy little accident. And it made sense too. We had loads of experience working on crystal from the development of Tem cards, and Tihani showed us how to really choose the best volcanic varieties. Most of our research assistants were Chipanki, so they really knew their electric Temtem. So who knew you could theoretically code information as ones and zeros? Professor Konstantinos building on Dr. Sasia's research, but to use electricity to store that information into a crystallized form, that was Dr. Hamajo's genius. And who knew how to tame these new Temtem and develop ways to communicate with them so that they'll actually be taught? You guessed it, young Tihani. It all came together like magic. A shadow fell over the professor's eyes, his mouth twitched a little. But as amazing as the invention was, it was just a tip of the iceberg. Digital technology had many more uses, as we all know now. Communications, transport, pan-solar energy. We leaped a century ahead, all in mere years. It was almost intoxicating. For the first time, the archipelago was really coming together. I guess all of this went to his head. Dr. Hamajo thought the team shouldn't stop with digital Temtem. He wanted to push forward and create more varieties of Temtem, specifically suited to serve humans. Now, this raised ethical issues within the team. Tihani and Nala said that it was inhuman towards the Temtem, but Hamajo doubled down and proclaimed he wanted to create a new race of Temtem slaves. Konstantinos tried to mediate, but it was too late. The professor sighed, lacing his fingers together. In the end, Dr. Sasia had to intervene. She was busy developing most of the digital-derived technology we have nowadays, including Heal-Tem machines you see at any Temporium. There was a meeting, a vote, and Dr. Hajimo was expelled from the team as a result. He didn't take it well. He just kind of disappeared, and nobody's heard from him since. He shrugged sorrowfully, recovering his tea mug for another sip. But that was years ago. We all moved on. Nanto Labs carried on developing new digital Temtem, and the tech spilled over. Now it's everywhere. Everyone went home. Tihani became a dojo master. Konstantinos has been traveling around. Last I heard, he was in the Dennis area researching metamimetic Temtem. And I returned to my alma mater, and these days I'm teaching lore at Properton. It's more laid back. Oh, Dr. Sasia? She still writes. She's back in Nanto working on some crazy instant matter transfer experiment, whatever that is. The stranger got up suddenly with something in his hand. The professor caught a glint of something flashing. His eyes went wide. So yeah, I think after hearing that, you guys might kind of understand why I really wanted to share this piece of information verbatim, as it really does make the world of Temtem feel alive, and as someone commented in the Kickstarter update, lived in, per se. Now there's a couple interesting questions and pieces of information that arise as a result of analyzing this. Something interesting is at the end there, they mention instant matter transfer. I'm assuming that's going to be the fly equivalent that we're going to see at some point in the game, a much needed addition if you ask me. But other than that, from a lore perspective, who's the stranger? What happened to the professor? Why were they even trying to make crystal electric hybrids in the first place? Were Tahini and Konstantinos really as innocent in all this as the professor states? Why did Bel Soto give Max a digital type? We see tons of grunts, yet none of them have one. If it's due to Max's potential as a tamer, how could they possibly see that if he has no other Temtem when you first meet him? Furthermore, what's the plan with these digital types, and why is Nanto still making them? Are they in cahoots with Bel Soto? Will one of the mythical Temtem play a role in this? What was Dr. Hamajo going to do with the diamond variety of Temtem he was trying to create in Anak? There's still a lot we don't know, and I think a lot of people overlook this game's lore, which is honestly quite sad, because from the mystery that is the digital type to the ancient draconic and serpentine varieties of Temtem, the game really does present interesting concepts. Hopefully we'll find out more answers to these questions come the Kisiwa update. Don't forget, we actually have a date with Bel Soto in Kisiwa, hence the original plan to go there before Lottie took our ship down. Anyways, with all that being said, I want to know what your guys' thoughts are on the conception of the digital type. We probably won't get a lot of answers until the Chipanku update, but it's still fun to get a discussion going nonetheless. If you did enjoy this little video, make sure to like and subscribe, and check out our Monster Tamer /subscriber Discord in the description. Until next time, guys, peace.